A faithful guardian's journey. What does loyalty look like when it stands on 4 paws and weighs just 6 pounds? The answer was shivering in a rain-soaked cardboard box beside a dumpster, fighting for each breath, eyes clouded with fever, yet somehow still burning with an inexplicable purpose that transcended mere survival. The tiny German Shepherd puppy wasn't just abandoned. He was waiting, not for anyone, but for someone specific. Someone he had never met, but whose life he was destined to change forever. The rain hammered against the windshield as Ethan's pickup truck rolled to a stop at the hillside gas station. The morning rush-hour traffic crawled by on the slick asphalt, headlights blurring through the downpour. Ethan sighed, rubbing the stubble on his chin as he killed the engine. Same stop, same time, same dreary Tuesday. The mundane routine had become his anchor since Sophia's accident 3 months ago. He pulled his jacket collar up against the rain and made a dash for the convenience store, sidestepping puddles that reflected the gray sky above. The bell chimed as he pushed through the door, nodding at Raj behind the counter. "The usual?" Raj asked, already reaching for a large coffee cup. "Yeah, thanks," Ethan replied, fishing in his pocket for his wallet. Through the streaked windows, Ethan watched the rain assault the pavement. His gaze drifted to the dumpster at the far end of the parking lot, where something caught his eye. A sodden cardboard box that hadn't been there yesterday. As he watched, the box shifted slightly. Ethan frowned. "Hold that coffee for a minute, would you?" Back in the rain, he approached the box cautiously. The closer he got, the more certain he became that something was moving inside. A faint whimpering sound reached his ears, barely audible above the drumming of the rain. He crouched down, water soaking through the knees of his jeans, and carefully peeled back the rain-softened cardboard flap. 2 eyes peered up at him, one partially crusted shut, the other wide with fear. A German Shepherd puppy, tiny and trembling, pressed itself against the corner of the box. Its ribs showed through patchy fur, and a makeshift bed of wet newspaper had turned to pulp beneath it. "Jesus," Ethan whispered, his breath fogging in the cold morning air. The puppy didn't growl or bark. It simply watched him, its tiny body quaking uncontrollably. Beside it lay a few soggy kibbles and what looked like a half-eaten fast food burger. Ethan glanced around the parking lot. No one was paying attention. Everyone was rushing to get out of the rain. Without thinking further, he shrugged off his jacket and reached into the box. The puppy flinched, letting out a pitiful yelp as it tried to press even further into the corner. "Easy, little one," Ethan whispered, his voice softening instinctively. "I'm not going to hurt you." Carefully, he wrapped the jacket around the puppy and lifted it out. The tiny creature weighed almost nothing in his hands, just bones, wet fur, and a frantically beating heart. As Ethan cradled it against his chest, the puppy's trembling intensified, but it didn't struggle or bite. Back in the store, Raj's eyes widened. "What you got there?" "Someone left a puppy by your dumpster," Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. "Did you see anyone drop something off this morning?" Raj shook his head. "No, man. Man? Just got here an hour ago. The night guy didn't mention anything." Ethan nodded, looking down at the bundle in his arms. The puppy's eyes were closed now, as though even the dim fluorescent lighting of the store was too much after the darkness of the box. "You gonna take it to the shelter?" Raj asked, sliding the coffee across the counter. Ethan hesitated. The shelter was overcrowded. Everyone knew that. And Sophia had been talking about getting a dog before her accident. She'd grown up with German Shepherds, had always said they were the most loyal companions a person could have. "No," Ethan said finally. "I'm going to take him home. In the truck." Ethan cranked the heat and gently placed the bundled puppy on the passenger seat. The smell of wet fur and something medicinal, maybe fear, filled the cab. As he pulled out of the parking lot, Ethan found himself talking softly to the puppy. "You're going to meet Sophia. She's been having a tough time lately, but she has the kindest heart of anyone I know." He glanced over. The puppy's eyes were open again, watching him with an intensity that seemed impossible for a creature so young and fragile. "I think you two might need each other." Sophia wasn't expecting him back so early. When Ethan opened the apartment door, he found her in her wheelchair by the living room window, a book open in her lap. Sunlight filtering through the blinds caught the copper highlights in her dark hair, and for a moment she looked almost like she had before. Before the drunk driver, before the surgeries, before the wheelchair. "Ethan?" She turned, surprise evident in her voice. "Is everything okay? You're home early?" And her eyes fell on the bundle in his arms. "What's that?" Ethan stepped forward, a nervous smile playing at his lips. "I found something." He carefully unfolded the jacket. The puppy's head emerged, ears flat against its skull, eyes darting around the unfamiliar room. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Ethan. Someone left him by the dumpster at the gas station. In this weather." The anger returned to his voice. "He's freezing, probably starving. I couldn't just..." But he didn't finish because something unexpected happened. The puppy, who had been nothing but terrified since Ethan found him, suddenly focused on Sophia. His tiny ears perked up slightly, and he let out a soft whine. Instead of cowering deeper into the jacket, he strained forward, one paw reaching out toward her. Ethan moved closer, and with infinite gentleness, placed the puppy in Sophia's lap. "What?" She cupped the small creature's head in her hands, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You poor, sweet thing," she whispered. The puppy looked up at her and did something he hadn't done with Ethan. He relaxed. His tiny body seemed to deflate as the tension left him, and he pressed his head into her palm with a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep and wounded. And then Sophia smiled, not the careful, measured smile she had been giving Ethan for months, the kind that acknowledged his efforts but couldn't hide her pain. This was a real smile, one that reached her eyes and transformed her face, making her look like the woman he'd fallen in love with years ago. In that moment, watching them together, Ethan knew he'd made the right decision. They named him Scout, because from that first day, he seemed to be constantly surveying his surroundings, alert, watchful, learning. And he never left Sophia's side. What they didn't realize then was that Scout hadn't just been rescued for a second chance at life. He had come into their lives with a purpose, and soon he would fulfill it in a way that would alter their lives forever. Scout slept for nearly 18 hours after Ethan brought him home. Sophia had fashioned a bed from one of her soft sweaters and a pillow, placing it right beside her wheelchair. The puppy barely stirred except for the rhythmic rise and fall of his small rib cage and occasional twitches as he dreamed. Sophia stayed close, gently stroking his half-formed ears, offering droplets of water from her fingertips, and speaking to him in soft, reassuring tones. When he finally opened his eyes, they were clearer, the crusting beginning to subside. "He needs to see a vet," Ethan said that evening, leaning against the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee cooling in his hands. Sophia nodded, not taking her eyes off Scout. "Tomorrow morning. I already called Dr. Paddle. She can see us first thing." Ethan watched them from the kitchen doorway. There was something in the way Scout looked at Sophia, an intensity, a focus that seemed beyond what you'd expect from a puppy so young. When she shifted in her wheelchair, grimacing slightly as pain shot through her healing leg, Scout's ears would perk up, his head tilting as though trying to understand her discomfort. "There's something special about him," Sophia said, looking up and catching Ethan's gaze. "The way he watches everything." Ethan nodded slowly. "I was thinking the same thing." He didn't voice his other thoughts. His curiosity about why someone would abandon what appeared to be a purebred German Shepherd puppy, or his concern about the way Scout had flinched when Ethan had reached for him with his work gloves still on. That night, after Sophia had taken her pain medication and settled into bed, Ethan carefully moved Scout's makeshift bed to the floor beside her. The puppy watched the process with alert eyes, his small head following Ethan's movements. "Good night, sweet boy," Sophia murmured, her voice already thick with approaching sleep. She reached down one last time to stroke Scout's head, and the puppy leaned into her touch, eyes drifting closed. Ethan switched off the bedside lamp and lay beside Sophia, listening to her breathing even out as she fell asleep. In the darkness, he could just make out Scout's small form, curled tightly in his bed, not yet asleep, but watching, always watching. At 3:12 a.m., Ethan jolted awake to a sound he hadn't heard before, a single, sharp bark. He sat up, disoriented. The room was dark except for the glow of the digital clock and the faint light from the street lamp filtering through the blinds. Scout was standing in his bed, body rigid, ears fully erect, and eyes fixed on the bedroom window. "What is it, buddy?" Ethan whispered, not wanting to wake Sophia. Scout didn't move, didn't bark again, but the intensity of his focus was unmistakable. Ethan slipped out of bed and moved to the window, peering through the blinds into the darkness of their small backyard. The security light hadn't triggered, and he could see nothing out of the ordinary, just the outline of their fence, the shed in the corner, the neighbor's oak tree beyond. Then he heard it, a faint metallic scraping sound, like something brushing against the chain-link fence that enclosed their yard. Ethan strained to see, but the shadows were too deep. The sound didn't repeat. After a few minutes of silence, Ethan returned to bed, though sleep eluded him. Scout remained standing, alert and watchful, until dawn began to lighten the sky outside. Only then did the puppy lie down again, though his eyes remained open, fixed on the window until the first rays of sunlight crept across the floor. The next morning, Ethan said nothing to Sophia about being awakened in the night. She had enough to worry about with her ongoing physical therapy and pain management. Instead, he made breakfast while she fed Scout tiny bits of scrambled egg from her fingers. "He's got an appetite today," she said, smiling as Scout eagerly licked her hand clean. "That's a good sign, right?" "Definitely," Ethan agreed, setting a plate of toast in front of her. "Why, what time is the vet appointment?" "9:30. "You don't have to miss work for it. I can call a rideshare." Ethan shook his head firmly. "I'm taking you, both of you." He wouldn't admit it, but after last night, he was reluctant to leave them alone. Dr. Patel was a brisk, efficient woman with kind eyes and a gentle touch. She examined Scout thoroughly, checking his eyes, ears, teeth, and limbs, while the puppy remained surprisingly cooperative. "He's about 8 weeks old, severely undernourished, and has a mild case of conjunctivitis in the left eye," she said, applying ointment to Scout's eye with practiced movements. "Some minor flea infestation, but otherwise, no signs of serious illness or injury." Do you think he was abused?" Sophia asked hesitantly, her hand resting protectively on Scout's back. Dr. Patel's expression softened. "I don't see any evidence of physical abuse, but the abandonment itself is a form of neglect. He's understandably distrustful, except—" She paused, watching as Scout turned to nuzzle Sophia's hand. "He seems quite attached to you already." She scanned him for a microchip but found none. "He'll need vaccinations, proper nutrition, and regular checkups. But I think you've got yourself a resilient little fellow here." As they were preparing to leave, Dr. Patel added, "German Shepherds are exceptionally intelligent dogs. They form strong bonds and are naturally protective. Given what he has been through, he may be even more so. It's something to be aware of as he grows." On the drive home, Scout sat in Sophia's lap, his small head turned so he could keep his eyes on Ethan. There was something evaluating in that gaze, as though the puppy was taking his measure, deciding something. "He likes you," Sophia said, noticing the exchange. Ethan smiled. "I think he's just making sure I'm taking us home." But as the days passed, it became clear that Scout was no ordinary puppy. He learned commands with startling speed. Sit, stay, come, often seeming to understand what was wanted before Sophia even completed the gesture. He anticipated her needs, pushing her phone closer when it rang, alerting her when the kettle whistled, positioning himself for her to use as support when transferring from her wheelchair to the couch. And every night he slept beside her wheelchair, except for the hours between midnight and dawn, when he would move to stand guard by the window or door, watchful, vigilant. On the 5th night after Scout's arrival, Ethan came home late from his shift at the construction site. The apartment was dark, and he entered quietly, not wanting to disturb Sophia if she was asleep. He had just set down his keys when he heard it, a low, rumbling growl coming from the bedroom. Ethan's skin prickled. This wasn't the sound of a puppy. This was something deeper, more primitive. He moved silently down the hallway, easing the bedroom door open. Scout stood at the foot of the bed, his small body taut as a bowstring, teeth bared. He wasn't looking at Ethan, but at the window, the same window he had focused on that first night. The curtain moved slightly in the breeze, and Ethan realized with a jolt that the window was open wider than they usually left it. He crossed the room quickly, checking the screen. It was intact but bent outward slightly, as though someone had been testing its strength. Sophia stirred in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible. Scout's growl intensified, then cut off abruptly as he recognized Ethan. The puppy's posture relaxed, and he moved to Ethan's side, leaning against his leg. Ethan closed and locked the window, drawing the curtains tightly shut. He stood for a long moment, staring at the darkened fabric, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. That hadn't been the wind. And that wasn't just a coincidence. The ground beneath the bedroom window showed no footprints, but the mulch in the flower bed had been disturbed. And when he checked the gate on the side yard, a gate they never used because it was too narrow for Sophia's wheelchair, he found it unlatched. They never left it unlatched. Ethan secured it, then stood staring at it, his mind racing. 3 unusual occurrences in less than a week. The scraping sound at the fence, the bent window screen, and now the unlatched gate. Once might be nothing. Twice could be coincidence. 3 times was a pattern. When he returned to the kitchen, Sophia was feeding Scout small pieces of bacon. The puppy ate delicately from her fingers, his eyes never leaving her face. "Was everything okay out there?" she asked, noticing Ethan's expression. He hesitated, not wanting to alarm her. "Just checking the fence. Thought I saw a loose board yesterday." Sophia studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly. Even before the accident, she'd always been able to tell when he wasn't being entirely truthful. "Ethan, it's nothing," he said quickly, forcing a smile. "Probably just the wind." But later that day, while Sophia was napping, Ethan installed a motion-activated camera facing the backyard and another covering the side gate. He didn't tell her about them. No need to worry her if he was just being paranoid. That night he checked the feeds repeatedly on his phone, seeing nothing but occasional cats passing through and the automatic security light triggering when a neighbor's dog ventured too close to the fence. At 2:47 a.m., Scout barked, that same single, sharp alert that had awakened Ethan on the first night. This time, both Ethan and Sophia sat up immediately. "What is it?" Sophia whispered, reaching for the bedside lamp. "Don't turn it on," Ethan said softly, already sliding out of bed. Scout was at the bedroom door, not the window this time, his small body vibrating with tension. Ethan's phone buzzed in his hand, motion detected at the side gate. He opened the app, heart pounding, and saw a dark figure briefly visible at the edge of the frame. The image was grainy, the figure mostly in shadow, but there was no mistaking the deliberate way they were testing the gate latch. Scout bolted from the bedroom, racing down the hallway toward the front door, barking continuously now. Sharp, insistent warnings that seemed impossibly loud coming from such a small creature. "Stay here," Ethan told Sophia, his voice tense. "Lock the bedroom door behind me." He moved quickly through the darkened apartment, following Scout to the front door. Through the peephole, he could see nothing unusual on the landing of their second-floor apartment. He hesitated, then opened the door just as a crash sounded from the back of the building, like someone rapidly descending the metal fire escape. Scout charged out the door before Ethan could stop him, racing down the hallway toward the stairwell. Ethan followed, taking the stairs two at a time, but by the time he reached the ground floor, Scout was standing at the back entrance of the building, staring out into the darkness, silent now but still alert. There was no sign of anyone, but the motion light at the back of the building was on, illuminating the empty yard and the fire escape, its lowest ladder still swinging slightly. Ethan crouched beside Scout, his heart racing. "Good boy," he said quietly, running a hand along the puppy's back. "You did good." Scout looked up at him, and in the harsh glare of the security light, his eyes seemed older, wiser than any puppy's should be. Then he turned and trotted back toward the stairs, clearly expecting Ethan to follow. Back in the apartment, Sophia was waiting in the hallway, her wheelchair positioned to block the path to the bedroom. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "What happened?" Ethan told her everything. The sounds he'd heard the first night, the bent screen, the unlatched gate, and now this. "I'm calling the police," he concluded, already reaching for his phone. The officer who responded was young and clearly skeptical. No actual break-in, no clear footage of a face, no witnesses except. He glanced down at Scout, who sat at attention beside Sophia's wheelchair. "A puppy." "He knew," Sophia insisted. "He warned us both times." The officer made notes, promised to have patrols drive by more frequently, and suggested they consider upgrading their security. After he left, Ethan and Sophia sat in silence for a long moment. "We should get a security system," Ethan said finally. Sophia nodded, absently stroking Scout's head. "I think we already have one," she said softly. The next day, Ethan called in sick to work and spent the morning installing additional locks on the windows and doors. He added more motion lights, covering every approach to their ground-floor apartment, and set up a wireless doorbell camera. Sophia watched him work, Scout curled in her lap, his eyes following Ethan's movements. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. Ethan paused, screwdriver in hand. "I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances." That afternoon, while Sophia was having her physical therapy session at home, Ethan took Scout back to Dr. Patel for his scheduled vaccinations. "He's gained weight," the veterinarian noted approvingly. "And his eye looks much better." As she prepared the vaccines, Ethan found himself asking, is it normal for a puppy his age to be so aware, so protective? Dr. Patel looked up, her expression curious. German Shepherds are naturally protective, but it usually develops over time with bonding and sometimes training. "Why do you ask?" Ethan hesitated, then told her about Scout's behavior, the nighttime alerts, the would-be intruder. "It's like he knows what he's doing, like he was trained for it, but he's just a puppy." Dr. Patel's brow furrowed slightly. "That is unusual, very unusual, actually." She examined Scout again, more carefully this time, running her hands along his body, checking his reflexes, looking into his eyes. His physical development is normal for his age, but his behavior, it's advanced. Some dogs do have natural instincts that are stronger than others. She paused and asked, "Would you mind if I scan him again, just to be thorough?" Ethan nodded, and Dr. Patel ran the microchip scanner over Scout's shoulders and neck. This time, it emitted a faint beep. She frowned, ran it again, and the scanner displayed a number. "That's odd," she murmured. "We didn't detect this before." She went to her computer, entered the number, and waited. Her eyebrows rose as she read the screen. "This is unexpected." "What is it?" Ethan asked, moving to stand beside her. "The chip is registered to a facility, not an individual." She pointed to the screen. "Canine Development Program. Government contract number. But it says the project was discontinued." She looked at Scout with new interest. "Your puppy was part of a specialized breeding program, Mr. Reeves. A military working dog program." Ethan stared at her, then at Scout, who sat calmly on the examination table, watching them both with those intelligent eyes. "So he was trained?" Dr. Patel shook her head. "According to this, the program was shut down shortly after this litter was born. The puppies were supposed to be placed with approved handlers, but," she shrugged, "budget cuts, changing priorities." He was microchipped, but never officially entered into the system. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "So, someone just dumped him?" "A military dog prospect," Dr. Patel corrected. "The question is, why?" On the drive home, Ethan kept glancing at Scout, who sat in the passenger seat, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Not restless or curious like a normal puppy, but focused, almost calculating. "You were born for this, weren't you?" Ethan said softly. Scout's ears twitched in his direction, but he didn't look away from the road. When they arrived home, Sophia's physical therapist was just leaving. She smiled when she saw Scout. "Your dog is remarkable," she told Ethan. He practically assisted with her exercises today, positioned himself for support, seemed to understand exactly when she needed encouragement. Inside, Ethan found Sophia on the couch, her face flushed with effort, but her eyes bright with accomplishment. "I stood for almost 2 minutes," she said proudly. Scout helped. Ethan sat beside her and told her what Dr. Patel had discovered. Sophia listened intently, her hand never leaving Scout's head. "That explains so much," she said when he finished. "The way he watches, how quickly he learns." She looked down at Scout with a newfound understanding. "You're special, aren't you?" That evening, Ethan made some calls to former colleagues. Before construction, he'd worked security for a private firm that sometimes contracted with local law enforcement. One of his old supervisors, Marcus, still had connections with the police department. "You said someone's been scoping your place?" Marcus asked when they met for coffee the next day. "Same person each time?" Ethan pulled out his phone, showing the grainy footage from his security camera. "Can't see much, but there's this." He zoomed in on a blurry image of a hand on the gate latch. Just visible on the wrist was a tattoo, 3 jagged lines. Marcus's expression darkened. "I've seen that before. Small-time crew, targets specific demographics. Usually homes with someone vulnerable, elderly, disabled, woman alone. They watch patterns, strike when they think there's least resistance." Ethan felt sick. "So we were on a list, because of Sophia's accident, probably." Marcus handed the phone back. "They're opportunistic, but they can get nasty when frustrated. If they've tried 3 times and been thwarted." He didn't finish the sentence. "What should I do? Get better cameras for one thing, and file reports every time there's an incident, no matter how small. Paper trail matters." And Marcus hesitated. "Maybe consider temporary relocation until they lose interest." But Ethan knew Sophia wouldn't want to leave their home. It had been modified for her wheelchair, was close to her doctors and physical therapy center. Moving would be admitting defeat, and if there was one thing Sophia wasn't, it was defeatist. That night, they double-checked every lock, closed every blind, and tried to pretend everything was normal. Scout refused his dinner, pacing restlessly between the front door and windows, his behavior making them both even more anxious. "He knows something's wrong," Sophia said, watching Scout pause at the front door, ears perked. It was past midnight when they finally went to bed, though neither expected to sleep much. Scout didn't come to the bedroom, choosing instead to stand guard in the living room, facing the front door. At 3:23 a.m., his bark cut through the silence of the apartment. Not the single alert bark from before, but a series of sharp, urgent warnings. Ethan was out of bed instantly, grabbing the baseball bat he'd placed nearby. "Call 911, he told Sophia, already moving toward the door. In the living room, Scout was at the front door, his small body rigid with tension, growling continuously. A sound that seemed impossibly deep coming from a puppy his size. Ethan's phone buzzed. 2 alerts, motion at the side gate and motion at the back door. He checked the app and felt his blood freeze. The figure was clear this time. A man in a dark hoodie, face partially obscured, but the intent unmistakable as he worked on the lock of the back door with what looked like a slim tool. Scout's growl intensified, and he began scratching at the front door, clearly wanting out. Ethan hesitated, then made a decision. He opened the door just enough for Scout to slip through, then followed, bat raised. The puppy bolted down the hallway toward the back stairs, moving with purpose. Ethan struggled to keep up, phone in one hand, bat in the other. By the time he reached the back entrance, Scout was already there, barking ferociously at the door. Through the glass panel, Ethan could see the man outside, startled by the barking, backing away from the door. Their eyes met briefly, and the man turned to run, but not before Ethan saw the 3-line tattoo on his wrist. Ethan pushed through the door, Scout racing ahead of him into the yard. The intruder was already at the fence, scrambling to climb it. Scout charged, his small body launching from the ground with surprising force, teeth catching the man's pant leg. The intruder kicked out, trying to dislodge the puppy. "Get off me, you little—" Ethan covered the distance between them in seconds, grabbing the man's arm and wrenching him back from the fence. The would-be burglar swung wildly, catching Ethan on the jaw, but Ethan didn't let go. They struggled, Scout still attached to the man's leg, growling and tugging. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The man fought harder, breaking free from Ethan's grip and making another attempt at the fence. This time, Scout released his pant leg and instead circled around, cutting off his escape route, teeth bared. The intruder hesitated, trapped between Ethan and the snarling puppy. "Call off your dog, man. He's not the one you should be worried about," Ethan replied, stepping closer, bat still ready. When the police arrived moments later, they found Ethan standing over the would-be intruder, Scout positioned at the man's feet, still growling softly. The officers were clearly impressed. "That's your guard dog?" one asked, looking down at Scout with newfound respect. "That's our family," Ethan corrected, watching as they handcuffed the intruder. Back in the apartment, Sophia was waiting in her wheelchair, face pale but composed. She opened her arms, and Scout went to her immediately, jumping into her lap and licking her face anxiously. "I'm okay," she assured him, wrapping her arms around his small body. "Thanks to you." The police took statements, collected evidence, and confirmed what Marcus had told Ethan. The intruder was part of a group that targeted vulnerable residents. In his backpack, they found rope, duct tape, and a knife. He had been watching their apartment for weeks, waiting for the right opportunity. "Your dog saved you from a lot worse than a burglary," the detective told them somberly. After the police left, Ethan sat beside Sophia on the couch. Scout nestled between them, finally relaxed. He really was meant to find us. Sophia said softly, stroking the puppy's ears. Ethan nodded, watching Scout's eyes drift closed. Or we were meant to find him. That night, as they prepared for bed, Ethan noticed something different about Scout. The constant vigilance, the relentless watchfulness at ease. He still checked the windows and doors, still positioned himself strategically near Sophia. But there was a peace to him now, as though a mission had been accomplished. When they finally lay down to sleep, Scout didn't take his usual position by the door or window. Instead, he jumped onto the bed and settled between them, sighing deeply as he closed his eyes. Sophia looked at Ethan across the puppy's small form. I think he feels like his job is done. Ethan reached out, resting his hand on Scout's side, feeling the steady heartbeat of the remarkable creature who had changed their lives. 6 months later, Scout had grown into his ears and paws, though he was still smaller than average for his breed. His intelligence had continued to impress everyone who met him, and his bond with Sophia had only strengthened. After the break-in attempt, their story had made the local news. Rescue puppy thwarts home invasion, complete with footage from the security cameras showing Scout's brave defense. The story had resonated with people, and soon they were receiving messages from all over. Veterans with PTSD, people recovering from trauma, families with special needs children. Would you consider bringing Scout to visit my son? One mother had written, he hasn't spoken since the accident, but he loves dogs, and your story touched him. Sophia, who had made remarkable progress in her own recovery, had looked at Ethan with hope in her eyes. We could try, couldn't we? The boy's name was Nathan, and he was 9 years old. A car accident had left him physically unharmed, but emotionally shattered, retreating into a world of silence. When Scout entered his room at the rehabilitation center, the puppy had approached slowly, respectfully, and then simply laid his head on the boy's lap. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Nathan had reached out, placed his small hand on Scout's head, and whispered, he knows. It was the first time he had spoken in 3 months. From that day on, Scout became more than a pet, more than a protector. With Sophia's encouragement, he began training officially as a therapy dog, visiting hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and veterans' homes. Everywhere he went, he seemed to know exactly who needed him most and how to reach them. A woman with severe anxiety who couldn't leave her home until Scout walked with her, one careful step at a time. An elderly veteran whose nightmares subsided when Scout slept beside his bed. A child with autism who found in Scout a patient, understanding friend who never judged, never rushed. Ethan watched in amazement as the tiny, trembling puppy he had rescued transformed lives. Not just theirs, but dozens of others. He had been bred for military service, trained to protect and defend, but his true calling had turned out to be healing. Sophia, too, had been transformed. Her physical recovery had been remarkable, fueled in part by her determination to be mobile enough to take Scout on his visits. She still used the wheelchair sometimes, on bad days, but more often now she walked with a cane, Scout always at her side, matching his pace perfectly to hers. One evening, as they watched Scout sleeping peacefully on his bed, a proper one now, though he still preferred their bed at night, Ethan asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped at that gas station that morning?" Sophia considered this, her fingers absently playing with the simple band on her left ring finger. A recent addition, their long-delayed wedding having finally taken place just a month before. "I think he would have found another way to us," she said finally. "Some things are just meant to be." Ethan smiled, remembering the frightened puppy in the rain-soaked box. From abandoned to guardian, he mused. Quite a journey. Sophia nodded, her eyes soft with love as she gazed at Scout. "We saved each other, I think." And it was true. The puppy who had been left to die had not only protected them from physical danger, but had rescued Sophia from the depression that had threatened to consume her after the accident. He had given Ethan back the woman he loved and had shown them both how to find purpose in helping others. Scout opened one eye, as though sensing he was being discussed, and thumped his tail against his bed. Sophia laughed. "Yes, we're talking about you, handsome." The puppy, no longer tiny but still not fully grown, stretched and stood, crossing the room to place his head on Sophia's knee. She stroked his ears, and he sighed contentedly. "You know what tomorrow is?" she asked him. "It's your adoption day. 1 year since Ethan found you." Scout looked up at her, his brown eyes reflecting the warm light of the living room, and something passed between them, an understanding, a shared memory of pain overcome, of growth, of love, discovered in the most unexpected places. Later that night, as Scout slept between them as he had every night since the attempted break-in, Ethan watched the steady rise and fall of the dog's chest and marveled at how something so simple, stopping at a gas station, looking in a discarded box, could so profoundly alter the course of multiple lives. Scout hadn't just been rescued. He had been sent to them, a guardian angel in the form of a German shepherd puppy, and in saving them, he had found his true purpose. Not as a military working dog, but as a healer of broken spirits, a bridge between isolation and connection. A living reminder that sometimes the most powerful force in the world is the unconditional love of a dog who believes in you. Not all heroes wear capes or carry badges. Sometimes they come to us on 4 paws, with wagging tails and unconditional hearts. Scout's journey from an abandoned puppy to a guardian and healer reminds us of profound truths that extend far beyond his remarkable story. First, there is the power of resilience. Scout could have been broken by abandonment, could have learned to fear humans based on his early treatment. Instead, he chose trust, cautious at first, then wholehearted. He transformed trauma into purpose, fear into courage. In our own lives, we face moments of abandonment, rejection, and pain. Scout's story challenges us to ask, will we let these moments define us, or will we use them as catalysts for growth and transformation? Then there is the miracle of connection. Scout recognized something in Sophia that no one else could see, not brokenness, but strength waiting to be awakened. He didn't see a woman in a wheelchair. He saw someone who needed a purpose as much as he did. In a world where we often pass each other by, focused on our screens or lost in our thoughts, Scout reminds us to truly see one another, to recognize the hidden struggles, the untapped potential, the spark of resilience that lives in every heart. Scout's protection of Ethan and Sophia speaks to loyalty, not blind devotion, but a conscious choice made day after day. Even as a puppy, he understood something profound about commitment. He didn't protect them because they had fed him or given him shelter. He protected them because he had chosen them as his family, and that choice was unshakable. In our relationships with others, we are called to this same loyalty. Not dependency or obligation, but a daily choice to stand by those we love, especially when darkness gathers. Perhaps most powerfully, Scout's story illuminates how our greatest wounds often become our greatest gifts to others. The very qualities that made him unsuitable for military service, his small size, his intense sensitivity, his heightened awareness, became the foundations of his ability to heal others. The trauma of his abandonment gave him a unique capacity to connect with those who were suffering. What if our own struggles and imperfections are not flaws to be hidden, but unique abilities waiting to be channeled toward helping others? In Scout's interactions with people who were hurting, the silent boy, the anxious woman, the nightmare-plagued veteran, we see the profound power of presence. Scout didn't offer solutions or platitudes. He simply showed up, fully present, offering the gift of his unwavering attention and unconditional acceptance. In a culture obsessed with fixing, achieving, and solving, Scout reminds us that sometimes the greatest gift we can offer another person is our presence. The simple, profound message, "I am here with you in this moment." Scout's story also challenges our assumptions about strength and vulnerability. True strength, his journey suggests, isn't about dominance or power. It's about the courage to remain open-hearted despite past wounds. It's about the willingness to trust again, to love again, to risk connection even when connection has hurt us before. Each time Scout approached a new person in need, he made himself vulnerable, and in that vulnerability lay his greatest strength. Finally, Scout's journey from a discarded puppy to a beloved therapy dog reminds us that our circumstances never need to determine our destiny. What matters is not where we start, but the choices we make along the way. Scout could not control being abandoned, but he could control how he responded to the second chance he was given. His life stands as a testament to the fact that our past does not define our future unless we allow it to. As we reflect on Scout's remarkable journey, perhaps the most important question it raises is this: what boxes have we been placed in, by others or by ourselves, that we need to break free from? What unique gifts are waiting within us to be discovered and shared? What wounds might we transform into wisdom? What fears might we turn into courage? Scout's story is not just about a remarkable dog. It's about the remarkable potential that lives within each of us, the capacity to rise above our circumstances, to connect deeply with others, to find purpose in our pain, and to transform not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us. In a world that often feels fragmented and divided, Scout reminds us of the healing power of unconditional love, the strength found in vulnerability, and the profound difference one open heart can make. If Scout's journey from abandoned puppy to healing guardian touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced the remarkable connection that can form between humans and animals? Perhaps you've been blessed with a special dog who seemed to understand you in ways others couldn't. Or maybe you've witnessed the healing power of animal companionship in your own life. Share your story in the comments below. What moments of connection, protection, or healing have you experienced with your four-legged family members? How has an animal helped you through a difficult time or brought unexpected joy to your life? Every animal has a unique story, and every human-animal bond is sacred in its own way. By sharing these stories, we create a community of understanding around the profound ways animals enrich our lives and heal our hearts. Thank you for joining us for Scout's story today. If you found value in this journey, please consider subscribing to our channel for more stories that celebrate the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals. Together, we can spread awareness about the transformative power of rescue, the importance of seeing potential where others see only problems, and the healing that happens when we open our hearts to unexpected connection. Remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes even in a rain-soaked cardboard box beside a gas station dumpster.